The first knock came at 3:02 a.m. on a Tuesday, sharp and rhythmic. 3 strikes, spaced perfectly apart, loud enough to slice through sleep, but not loud enough to sound urgent. At first, it blended into the half-dream state, where sounds don't yet mean anything. A car door, a branch against the siding, something the mind could safely ignore. But then it came again, 3 knocks. Same tempo, same force, deliberate in a way that made the room feel suddenly alert. The digital clock glowed red in the darkness. 3:02, the hour people don't knock unless something is wrong. I lay still, listening. The house was quiet. No footsteps, no voices, just the faint hum of the refrigerator and my own breathing, suddenly too loud. Another knock came, closer now, heavier, unmistakably on the front door. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I considered not answering. Every instinct said, stay still, let it pass. But then I heard my name, Mason. It was muffled through the door, but clear enough to recognize. The voice belonged to my neighbor. Ethan lived 2 houses down. Mid-30s, quiet, polite. The kind of guy who waved but never stopped to talk. I'd lived on that street for almost 4 years and knew very little about him beyond his schedule up early, home late, in the fact that he never had visitors, no friends, no family, no noise, just the steady glow of his porch light every night, always on, even when the rest of the street went dark. I got out of bed and walked to the door, careful not to turn on any lights. Through the peephole, I saw him standing on my porch, hands at his sides, posture straight, face calm. To calm. He wasn't frantic, he wasn't drunk, he looked composed, like this was planned. I opened the door a few inches, chain still on. Everything okay? I asked. He smiled faintly, eyes unfocused, as if he were looking past me into the house. Sorry to bother you, he said. I just needed to ask something. At 3 in the morning. I know, he said. I lost track of time. There was a pause. He didn't continue. What do you need? I asked. He seemed to think about it, really think. Then he shook his head slightly. Never mind, it can wait. He stepped back from the door before I could respond, turned, and walked down the porch steps without another word. No apology, no explanation, just gone, swallowed by the darkness between the streetlights. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty porch, trying to convince myself it was nothing. People are strange at night. Maybe he couldn't sleep. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe I was overreacting. I locked the door and went back to bed. The second knock came the next night at 3:01 a.m. This time, I didn't pretend it was nothing. My eyes snapped open the moment the sound hit. Heart already racing, body already tense, like some part of me had been waiting for it. 3 knocks, same rhythm, same force, precise, measured. I didn't move. Mason. Ethan's voice called again, soft but insistent. I stayed in bed, listening, every muscle locked. The knock came again, louder this time, then silence, then footsteps retreating from the door. The next morning, I checked my porch camera. The footage showed Ethan standing there for exactly 1 minute and 12 seconds. He knocked twice. He said my name once. He never looked at the camera. He never checked his phone. He never showed any emotion beyond that faint, distant smile. Then he turned and left, walking straight home, never once looking back. On Thursday night, I didn't sleep. At 2:58 a.m., I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, lights off, waiting. When the knock came 3:00 a.m. exactly, EI was already standing behind the door. I didn't answer. Mason, he said, closer this time, like he was leaning toward the wood. I know you're awake. That was new. My mouth went dry. I held my breath. He knocked again, slower now, each strike heavier than the last. Please, he said. I just need a minute. I don't know how long he stood there after that. 5 minutes. 10. The porch camera later showed 12. 12 minutes of him standing completely still, facing my door, head slightly tilted, like he was listening for something on the other side. Then, without warning, he turned and walked away. On Friday, I called in sick to work. I spent the day watching his house through the front window. Nothing moved. The porch light was off for the first time I could remember. The blinds were drawn. No car in the driveway, no sound. It was like the house itself had shut down. At 6:47 p.m., his car pulled in. He got out, went inside, and turned the porch light on. At 3 a.m., the knock came again. This time, I answered. I don't know why. Curiosity, fear, exhaustion, maybe some irrational need to confront whatever this was before it swallowed my thoughts entirely. I opened the door, fully, chain off, hand tight around the edge of the frame. What do you want? I asked. Ethan looked relieved, genuinely relieved. His shoulders dropped slightly, like he'd been holding tension all night. I need help, he said. With what? He glanced over his shoulder, back toward his house, then leaned in slightly. His voice dropped to a whisper. Something's wrong in my house. I laughed. A short, sharp sound that surprised both of us. You wake me up every night for that. I didn't want to, he said quickly. I tried to fix it myself. Fix what? He hesitated. For the first time since this started, he looked unsure, not afraid, uncertain. There are things moving, he said, finally. When I'm asleep, I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. I think I'm sleepwalking, he added, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like something else. I should have closed the door. I should have told him to call a doctor, or the police, or anyone but me. Instead, I asked the worst possible question. What kind of things? He smiled again. That same distant smile. I wake up and things are different. Furniture moved, doors unlocked, and sometimes I find things I don't remember bringing home. My skin crawled. What things? He didn't answer. He just looked at me, eyes steady, unblinking. Can you come look? He asked. I said no. The relief drained from his face instantly, replaced by something flat and cold. He nodded once, like he'd expected the answer. Okay, he said. I understand. He turned and walked away. That was the last knock. On Sunday morning, the police came. It was 10:18 a.m. when the first cruiser pulled up outside Ethan's house, then another and another. By 10:26, the street was lined with vehicles. Officers moved quickly, quietly, like they didn't want to be heard. One of them knocked on my door, not 3 times, not measured, but firm and official. Sir, he said, we need to ask you a few questions about your neighbor. They'd received a tip, an anonymous call about strange activity, late-night movements, lights flickering on and off at odd hours, deliveries that didn't match any known business. They asked if I'd noticed anything unusual. I told them about the knocks. Their expressions changed immediately. They asked 4 times. I gave them exact minutes. They exchanged glances I couldn't read. At 11:04 a.m., they breached the front door. What they found inside Ethan's house would take hours to fully process, but the first thing they discovered was the smell. Not decay, not rot. Something chemical, clean, sterile. Like a hospital corridor that had been scrubbed too thoroughly. The basement was the worst part. Hidden behind a false wall, they found a room that didn't exist on the house's blueprints. Soundproofed, reinforced. Inside were restraints bolted into the floor, surgical lights, shelves of labeled containers, and dozens of personal items, wallets, phones, watches, each sealed in plastic bags, each tagged with a date and time. All between 2:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. over the past year. Ethan was arrested 2 hours later at a rest stop 30 miles away. He didn't resist. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He only asked one question. Did I wake him up too much? That night, I didn't sleep. The porch light on his house stayed off. The street was quiet. No knocks, no footsteps, just the ticking of my clock as it rolled past 3 a.m., then 3:01, then 3:02. I never answered the door again at that hour, because some nights, when the world is quiet and the mind is tired, the most dangerous thing isn't what's outside your house. It's the person who knows exactly when you're awake.